Thank you for checking out the Dancing Eyes Podcast, episode 23. My name is Frankie Caputo, and today my guest is Cameron, who's a 26-year-old provisional psychologist from Perth, Australia. Having nystagmus can heavily influence the kinds of people that we are, and in this episode of the Dancing Eyes Podcast, Cameron and I discuss why this might be the case. What if we were never born with nystagmus? How different would our lives be? As I have just mentioned, Cameron is a psychologist. In what ways did having nystagmus influence Cameron's decision to have a career in mental health? These are just a few of the talking points that Cameron and I have had in this episode. Timestamps for all of the different conversations will be available in the description of the podcast. I've recently made a guest application form, so if you would like to be a guest on the Dancing Eyes podcast, you can find this form in the description of the video. If you guys are not following the Dancing Eyes podcast on Instagram, you are missing out. We are posting a bunch of clips from the episodes on there, and we've got a good little community going, and I highly recommend checking it out. You can find us by typing in Dancing Eyes Podcast or clicking the link in the description. This episode of the Dancing Eyes Podcast is sponsored by the American Nystagmus Network. ANN works to improve the quality of life for all persons and families affected by nystagmus through organized community, support, education, public awareness, and research. If you guys use Amazon, you can easily donate to ANN by downloading the Amazon Smile app, and for no extra cost, Amazon will donate a portion of their proceeds from your purchases to ANN. A link to the American Nystagmus Network will also be available in the description. Lastly, new episodes will be out on the first and third Monday of every month, so keep your eyes out for those. And with all that being said, I hope everyone listening enjoys and gets something from this episode, and let's get on to the show. Cameron, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think I reached out, when was it? It was like...
about a month and a half ago.
Yeah. When I was like, I mentioned just before, when I first found your podcast, I just went through and binged them all like within 2 weeks. It was really, really quite a, personal journey. I was like, oh, this is funny. This is sad. This is funny. This is sad. Yeah, I found it so interesting hearing everyone's experiences, and it was nice as well because I was like, wow, that is kind of word for word how I feel, or what I've thought that exact same thing before. I've struggled with that exact same thing. So then I just couldn't like get enough of that relatability. It was pretty addictive as well, to be honest.
I think, there's something one of the like things, super... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is the fun part of doing stuff on Zoom, isn't it?
Internet lag problems.
Yeah. When I was like younger and always trying to, on the internet research stuff about nystagmus, everything that would pop up would mostly be like sciencey things like, oh yeah, this is the neurological condition. It was very science heavy, not personal heavy. So then sometimes I would find people's stories on Reddit and I'd read those. But very few people would talk about them or talk about their condition in such a personal way. But I think that's what I was like craving the most. So when I found your podcast, I was like, wow, this is like the personal lived experiences of people living with this. It's super, super impactful and super nice to listen to. And I was like, I want to be on that podcast and, share my experiences, but also I think for everyone else on the podcast, like myself too, and you getting to talk about yourself, it's quite therapeutic to just talk about it in quite like a transparent way.
Yeah, well, I'm super happy the way that you explained how you'd go online and it's all scientific and technical and kind of the best way that you could go about to getting somebody to relate to is going on Reddit and reading all of these stories on there. And that's the exact same thing that I was struggling with is I've got this very specific condition and I don't have anybody who can relate to it. And I look it up online. I go on YouTube and Google, all these places. And it's just doctors talking about the condition for their students or explaining what the condition is and how it happens. And it's not the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. I want personal stuff. I want people actually talking about something that I can relate to. And like you said, the next best thing is Reddit. And even something like that, it's like, yeah, we can read all these stories and it's so much better than listening to a doctor tell us about it. But even then it's like still not so much of a conversation. I think there's an aspect of communication where you talk face to face with another person. It's just more personable than it is typing to each other. That's how I
yeah,
feel.
it's a bit more authentic, and you kind of get to see the emotion as well, and get to hear the weight behind it as well.
Yeah.
Like I think I've heard some of your guests, a bit of a shaky voice talking about it because I don't know, over the past few years for me, I've been trying to be a lot more transparent and comfortable talking about it. But before, when I was younger, anytime I'd talk about it, I'd start to get, I don't know, I could feel my eyes starting to water up a little bit, or it was quite like a personal, vulnerable topic to talk about. So yeah, talking about it face to face is good to get comfortable talking about it, so then we can do that more in the world, and then more people find out about it and learn about it.
100%.
And
And it really is a
yeah,
vulnerable topic because there's, first of all, so little people who have it. And these
yeah,
certain experiences, I spoke to you a little bit before we started, but these very specific experiences that nobody can quite relate to unless you've had the condition. And there's so few people that have the
yeah,
condition, which obviously means there's so little people who you could relate to. And just a small example of this is you're having a conversation with somebody and your eyes just start shaking. And then, do I tell them? Do I not
yeah,
tell them? How are they
yeah.
perceiving me? Do they think I'm on drugs? And just all these questions. And then, oh, now I'm thinking about my eyes and I'm not actually engaging in the conversation. And where do I?
Then you're like, what did you say? And then it all goes, it's like a big cycle.
Yeah.
Do you tell them? Do you tell people that you have it? Or how do you tell people
It
that
depends
you
how
have
bad
it?
they get. Like if my eyes start getting really bad, I'll tell them. I'll say, hey, born with a thing, not on MDMA right now, though that would be quite
Yeah.
fun. Not not at the
Yeah.
moment am I on MDMA, and and yeah, that's kind of how I go about it. And for
Make it very clear that you're not on drugs. Yeah.
yeah, because that's like a go-to for
Yeah.
people. It's either, so there's two things, right?
Yeah.
From my experience, is are you
Mhm.
on drugs, or why are you so nervous right now? Why are you so anxious?
Yeah.
So what do you do
Yeah.
when your eyes start going
Um,
crazy?
well, what do I do? I do like to bring it up with people. If my eyes start going crazy, oh, like if I'm, what, I don't know exactly what I do when that happens. If I feel like it's important for it to be raised, I'll try and manipulate the conversation to go in a way where I can organically bring it up. So yeah, I do that with friends or dating, or if it's important. So for example, not being able to drive is a very easy way to segue into the conversation. Because I can be like, oh yeah, like it takes me so long to get to work because I have to get public transport. Oh, why do you get public transport? Oh, I can't drive. Why can't you drive? And it's an organic way to bring it up rather than just being like out of the blue. Oh, I've got a vision impairment. Oh no.
And how do people
um,
usually respond to you when you talk about your eyes?
it can vary. I really appreciate it. I really like when people ask questions and try to explore it, because majority majority of people, a lot of people, just kind of, they don't respond negatively, but I think they just don't know what to say, or they think that saying something, they'd rather say nothing than say the wrong thing.
Right.
I think so. They'll just be like, "Oh yeah," or they'll start saying "Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool that you're like, what's cool? What's I don't know what's cool." And then yeah, it gets a little awkward sometimes. But maybe that's just me being awkward about it because I haven't always been the most comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I've gotten
Maybe I'm
the, oh,
bringing that
that's
into the
cool
conversation
before.
too.
That's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
I don't know exactly what induces a response like that, because maybe they actually do think it's cool, or maybe it's just them being
yeah,
like, hey, it's cool, like it's not. I've had people
yeah,
be like, oh, your eyes shake, that's actually a cool thing. I've heard stories where people say, I wish my eyes do that too. Then it's like, no, you don't.
yeah.
I don't.
I was like,
No,
no,
you
you
don't.
don't. It's like, why are you saying that? I don't think you do wish that, but I think they just didn't know what to say. So they,
Yeah.
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 I was talking to someone, so they were a physio, and apparently physios, I didn't know this, but they do a lot of work with people who have nystagmus, because it can also be so I think it's congenital nystagmus for me. Is that the same with you?
Hmm.
Yeah, so otherwise people can acquire it from having a stroke, as well. And then people with a stroke go to physios. So then she was like, "Oh yeah, I know what nystagmus is." Like, wow. cool. I don't need to explain this at all. That's super nice. And then she was saying that's really cool because she gets to talk to somebody who has it, so then she can understand from like, I don't know, a bit more personal conversation, maybe what their clients are going through. So
I love
yeah,
when people know about it and I don't have to say anything.
I know it's kind of a relief too, or it's like you can skip the initial awkwardness and get right into like the meat of talking about it too, instead of like doing like an. How do you describe it when you? How do you? When people like ask what it is, what do you say?
It's an eye condition that makes my eyes move around uncontrollably all of the time.
Yeah,
That's kind of that's how I mention it when I'm on stage and I talk about it. So
yeah,
it's
okay,
kind of, and then there's so many aspects about it. Like I don't even bring up the null point or anything to people. Like you can just kind
yeah,
of figure that's not. It's really something that I feel like I have to mention.
yeah.
Because I don't know, but I feel like the eyes is something that I like to mention. So that's kind of how I describe it. How do you describe it?
Yeah, pretty similar. I think I'd say something like, oh yeah, I've got a vision impairment. So it's a disability where my eyes kind of shift from side to side. It can increase or decrease depending if I'm tired or fatigued. And, the faster my eyes are moving, the worse I see.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, pretty much like that. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm not looking crazy or anything. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, but no, definitely a relief when people already know about the condition. Like I was at a comedy show, and one of my fellow comedians I was talking to before my set, and we were just engaging, and he looked at my eyes and he was like, "Oh, you have nystagmus," and I was like, "Oh, hey, how do
you
you?
know this.
What's up?" And he was like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
trained to be a police officer, and this was just one of the things that they train you for." And I was like, yeah, I'm super aware of that, unfortunately, because then people think that you're high, and because it's literally
Yeah.
one of the first thing that a cop will look for when they're looking for an
Look
intoxicated
for.
person
Yeah.
is nystagmus. So yeah, it was definitely. It's always neat when somebody knows about it and you don't have to go through all that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So you're a
Yeah. So a lot of people in
provisional
the.
psychologist.
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah, provisional psychologist.
So what is
Yeah, I
that?
can talk a bit about it if
Yeah.
you want. Yeah. So it's a psychologist. I just provide therapy to clients. I work with a pretty the clinic that I work at is a pretty big variety of clients as well. So it can be anyone of all ages and also people with disabilities as well. Um, I'm pretty new in the job, to be honest. I got the job about 3 months ago, so I just graduated my degree like at the end of last year in November, and it took me a while to find a job. Funny that not being able to drive was partly a barrier to finding a job,
Yeah.
but I found a pretty good workplace where I'm at now.
I've always been
Um,
curious about this very specific thing about being a psychologist. And that is when you have a patient and you're sitting across the room from them and they're talking to you and your eyes start shaking. Do you have to mention your eyes before you meet up with one of these
no, I
people?
don't. I have thought about this though, and it's not even just like at work, but it's also just like, yeah, do you mention it or not? Because um, obviously, like we can see people's faces, but we can't see the intricacies of the emotions going on as clearly unless our faces are pressed up against theirs. So, it's happened in the world and it's happened like at work as well. If people are crying, I don't register that they're crying straight away.
Hmm.
So,
Same.
so like they're talking and I'm just like, and I keep talking back to them, and then I'm just like, I think a few minutes went by before I realized that like they were crying, and you kind of, I think yeah, you just find alternative ways to recognize it. Like if you hear someone sniffling, that's probably a sign, as well, or if they're like wiping their eyes, just things that you can different cues I think to learn to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned it that I've got it in my sessions, but I would mention it. I think it would probably be pretty useful, especially if I was working with other people with disabilities, because yeah, it just kind of opens up a relatability as well. It's like, oh, I've shared this. I understand some experiences of the challenges life can offer if you're different than other people.
Hmm.
So I think it's helpful, if anything, in a therapy setting.
Yeah, I think it's nice when, like, because I've been in therapy a couple of times. I think it's nice when the therapist can kind of relate to you on a certain thing. Like right after my dad died when I was 13, I did some therapy, and I had a therapist, and she had mentioned to me that her father had also passed away when she was about my age. And I think that helped me a little bit and allowed me to kind of be like, oh, she kind of knows where I'm coming from here. She's been through something
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, they can, it helps, like, yeah, exactly what you said. They can, like, you as the client can understand, yeah, they had some life experience with the challenges that I'm going through. Yeah, the situations are different, but there's going to be some things that they can relate to that maybe someone whose parent hasn't passed away can't relate to. So yeah, that's really nice. And
Yeah.
hopefully it's a similar experience if I was to divulge that with my clients as well.
So what
Yeah.
influenced you to go through the psychology route?
Um, so it's a bit of a long journey for me getting here. When I finished high school, I went to university and I started studying a different degree. So the degree I first started studying it was some marketing degree, and I just wasn't enjoying it at all. So then I was like, sat myself down, was like, what are you interested in? I thought, well, I'm interested in the way people behave and all of that. And then I kind of went along with that. To be honest, I don't know how much in-depth thought I put into it, but having gone through the degree now, reflecting, I'm like, I think what's really influenced me to study psychology and mental health is the vision impairment. Is a huge reason that put me in that direction because growing up, I'm very familiar with the mental health challenges that can arise from it, like just feeling anxious a lot as well, and yeah, having challenges in life that maybe other people without a disability don't have. I think all of those things have pushed me into that area. Having to talk a lot and confront my own emotions and vulnerability, probably all of those things pushed me into it. And then just naturally, I think I've got an interest for it because of that. And
Interesting.
yeah, and say that probably is one of the biggest parts that's pushed me into that area. As well as I think it's really important as well, just to talk about mental health in general, not even like disability specifically, but it's good for people to talk about what they're struggling with. Um,
Okay, so that's kind
yeah,
of
I'd say
how
that's
your
probably,
eyes have
yeah.
affected your interest in psychology. How do you think? Would you say that psychology has affected the way that you look at your eyes?
I'd say it's influenced the way that I cope with things in the world. Like, um, it's has influenced the way psychology influenced the way I look at my eyes.
Well, you know,
Yeah, like maybe,
like
yeah, like the way I cope. Yeah,
I've had guests who are into philosophy, for example, and maybe they'll take some of the things that they've learned and use it in relation to their eyes, and it could potentially help them be more secure with
yeah,
themselves.
definitely. I think, yeah, it's a good way to put it. Yeah, I'd say that. What have I tried? Just kind of knowing, like, oh yeah, everyone's got things that they struggle with. I've got this thing I struggle with, and that's okay as well.
Hmm.
Trying to get more comfortable with, yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest part that psychology and studying it and working in it has helped with is just get comfortable talking about vulnerable topics. If for no other reason, maybe it would be a bit hypocritical if I wasn't comfortable doing it. But then I expect all of the clients to divulge their vulnerable stuff to me. So, um, yeah, I think that's probably been a good way to push me to talk about it as well as understand.
Okay.
Yeah,
What point in your life would you say that the nystagmus started playing a role? When did it start affecting you?
I think it's impacted like everything I do, not in a bad way or an extreme way, with everything. When did I first notice it? When did it playing a role? Um, in school, probably when I started to recognize it, just when all of the accommodations had to start being made for you in classes as well. My parents were really supportive, so they helped while I was a kid. So they were, talking with the school and making sure all of these accommodations could be made. So that would go from like where I'd sit in the classroom or large print books or a variety of other things as well.
Hmm.
But I probably started noticed it playing a role then because I was like recognized that I was different because I'm sitting there in primary school, sitting at the front of the classroom with a giant A3 sheet of paper on my desk, which that is just like it's like, well, no one else has that on their desk, so it just made me feel separate from everyone else, and then I hated it so much. Yeah.
Did you hate it because you didn't like being different, or did people mention it to you? Were people making you feel excluded?
No, I was pretty fortunate. I don't remember or recognize ever really being bullied, but I think it was more of like an internal thing. Like I recognized that I was different, and I didn't want to be different. I didn't want to need to have that A3 sheet of paper on it. Later down the track, I ended up finding a compromise with the schools with like increase the font size but make it A4 sheet of paper, because for one thing I think an A3 sheet of paper is impractical. Like doing an exam and turning through page after page of A3 is quite taxing.
Yeah, true. And nowadays though, fortunately we could take pictures of the board.
Yeah, take pictures and find all of these fun ways to problem solve it. I think we're quite fortunate in that we have nystagmus in a world where we have a smartphone, because it does mean we don't always have to ask for help to read a menu as such, or we don't have to read street signs or look at maps, because we can just put on Google Maps, and a lot of things we can disguise those barriers that we have quite a lot.
Yeah, technology has definitely helped with assistance, and like a good example is the menus. Another really good example is the Google Navigator and Siri talking to you and telling you where you're at. I know you don't drive, but there's people with nystagmus who do drive, and that's definitely something that you'll commonly hear is like, yeah, I drive, but I still can't see the signs. So I have to have Siri tell me the signs.
Yeah, just look at the have Siri tell me where to go. Yeah.
So were you always under the idea that you weren't gonna drive, or was there a certain?
I knew that from the get-go. I think my parents, I'm assuming, I haven't spoken to them about it, but I'm guessing from as far back as I can remember, they always mentioned that it was probably a possibility. So then the time it got to when I was 16 and everyone was getting their like learner's permits, I was like pretty familiar with the idea that that wasn't going to be something I could do. So it didn't come as a surprise. It didn't impact me too much then. I'd say it impacts me more now that I can't drive, because if I want to go anywhere at nighttime, then I probably need to either pay for an Uber or something, and then that can be quite expensive if it adds up, or I have to ask somebody to give me a lift, which, my friends and family are happy to give me a ride, but I also hate that I have to ask for that help as well.
Yeah, you want to be independent. You want to be able to not ask somebody every time you got to get somewhere.
Yeah. I know, and it's like, I know you're telling me that I'm not being a burden, but I can't, just stop feeling like imposition almost, right? Because if I didn't have a vision impairment and I still didn't have my license, the way I would rationalize it is, if you're giving me a lift, when I get my license, I give you a lift too, and then it would kind of balance out. But now I don't have that ability to offer that. So then I try to find alternative ways, like, I'll shout you a drink here, or buy you a movie ticket there.
It's kind of the best I got too, is like, I'll give you gas money and I'll buy you your lunch or something.
Yeah, and I'll thank you too much, more than I probably should.
How's the public transportation where you're at?
It's not too bad. Everyone says it's pretty crap, but I think I found a way to make it work for me. And I think if I went into it with the mindset that it was completely garbage and terrible, I'd be a pretty unhappy person, because that's all I've got to get around. So, by
the way, for anybody listening, you're in Australia. You're in.
I'm
Perth.
in Australia. If you can hear it in my voice, whoever the majority of the audience is,
well, because you are the second person who lives in Australia, but Mikey wasn't born in Australia, so you don't hear that same accent. So we get the full experience, the full Australian experience with you.
I'm glad to be the first Australian accent on this podcast. What was I going to say? Yeah, public transport. So where I work, it's about an hour. It would be an hour's drive from where I am. So an hour's drive on public transport in the morning, I have to allocate like 2 hours to get there. Um, it doesn't take 2 hours on public transport. So if everything lined up fine, it'd be a 10-minute bus, 5-minute bus ride, 40-minute train ride, 10-minute bus ride. So I could probably do it in an hour if everything lined up.
Yeah.
But not everything will line up, right? Like if I miss my bus, then that means I'll miss my train, which means I'll miss my bus. So then I often have to get places early and allocate more time to get.
Have you ever considered,
somewhere. Yeah.
like, do you think that legally you wouldn't be able to obtain the license, or is it more of the mentality? Because
legally,
the reason I asked the
Australia,
question is because I've had people on my podcast who have about the same vision as you, like you're 2060, 2080. And I've definitely had some people on the podcast with that vision who do drive, but it's, you're about to answer now, but like as far as legalities go, I think it requires less over in the US than it might in Australia.
Yeah, that's what I learned too, because I was like, wow, yeah, my vision's similar to what other people are saying it is. Similar to what other people have in the US, and they're able to drive. In Australia, and I think that the people we've had from the UK as well, it's similar to Australia. I think it's 2040 that you need to be able to drive.
Damn.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I think it could be a little higher, but either way, mine unfortunately is not.
If that was the case over here, then there would be a lot of people in Nystagmus who wouldn't drive, who do drive. Yeah.
I've always thought about, I don't even entirely think that the 2020 system is a good way to measure nystagmus, because I think, I mentioned earlier, and other people have mentioned it too, is like being tired or fatigued or anxious. All of those things will worsen your vision. So it's not like a fixed 2060 vision. One day it may be 2060, one day it may be 2050, but the next day maybe it'll be like 2100 if you're like super sleep deprived.
Yeah. And also it varies throughout the day, right? So like not even
exactly,
one day 2060, one day 2080, but it could be like at 1 p.m. it's 2060. At 1:05 it's 2080.
Yeah. And it's not predictable, right? So you can't all right, it's 10 o'clock. My vision is now at its peak. It's time to.
Imagine we were on a little schedule over there. It'd be a lot easier.
Yeah. So I was just like, even if my I think I'm happy that I know that I can't drive. Like I've got a definitive answer. Because how do you feel knowing that you can drive, but you have challenges doing it? Like, does that?
Right.
How do you? Yeah.
So here's my answer for that. So I've mentioned before I do have a driver's license, so I have taken that step and I have driven, and I've driven for 4 or 5 hours, so not that many hours at all, but I have gotten on the road, and I'm at a stage in my life again where I'm gonna start to get on the road again and start to give it another go. At the time when I was driving, I didn't really have a car to drive, so I would take driving lessons. And so the only time I'd be able to drive was with my instructor. So I took 4 lessons or so, got my license, and just never drove again. And so not driving led to a lack of belief that I could drive, even though I had done it for hours and hours. Yeah. And now it's been about a year and a half since I got my license, because that was like January 2021 is the last time I've driven. Right. So I don't actually really have a negative experience with driving, and it's really just a confidence thing. And thanks to all the people that I've had on the podcast who drive, and the select few of people who have been on the podcast who have worse vision than me and still drive. Thanks to them.
Okay. If they can do it, I can do it.
There's definitely people who have worse vision than I do, because mine's not so bad. And here's another thing. This is another level to my thing, and that is I got LASIK surgery last year, and my eyes got to about where they were with the glasses and then a little bit throughout the time, the vision has lessened. So my eyes aren't as good as they can be right now. And so right now I'm working on getting a new prescription just for when I drive so that they can be as good as possible. And the second I get that prescription, the second I feel like they're as good as they can be, then I'm going to get back on the road again and give it a real go this time. So that's kind of the update there. And yeah, it's just a confidence thing, man. Like I just wasn't confident that I'd be able to do it. And that stems from a bunch of like negative interactions with myself, just doubt and talking negatively and ideas that don't necessarily need to be there, but they're there. And I felt like I let myself down because I took the step in driving and then I kind of just stopped doing it. So
it didn't like keep it going.
I didn't keep it going. So I don't know if that's an answer to what you asked, but that's
because the challenges that you're kind of like going through of like having your license, but then also having nystagmus, it's like, yes, in theory you're allowed to drive, but then you're like, oh, am I good enough to drive? Am I going to have an accident? Am I going to like those types of things? And like for me, like in Australia, because I can't drive, I'm like, maybe I'm able to cope with it a bit better because it's a black and white answer for me. So I don't have to like question myself. And
part of me wishes that it was that simple for me as well. Like, I definitely can't do it. I just shouldn't even bother.
It's kind of similar to similar way I like think about it as well. We can talk about one of the points was about like identity as well, with whether or not you'd get rid of the nystagmus if there was something that let you do it. And I've struggled a lot with that question, and I go back and forth, like, would I do it? Would I not do it? Because if I got rid of it, I feel like my identity is like, there are a lot of things that I'm interested in. Like I love reading, movies, hanging out with friends, a lot of, standard things. But I'd say my nystagmus is like a core part of who I am. So then would I choose to get rid of it if I could? But then if I did get rid of it, who am I without it? Would I? Because it'd be like a core part of me being taken away. So whilst I want research to be done to help people get rid of it, I simultaneously want to prolong that happening as far as possible, because not having to make that choice would help me feel a bit more comfortable. Because if there was the choice, you can get rid of it, and then you're like, yes, getting rid of it from like a logical point of view would mean I'd probably be able to drive. It would mean that I wouldn't feel like I'm a burden to people. It would mean that I don't need to have my phone pressed up against my face when I'm reading it, or it means I could like see people's expressions. But then, so there's lots of benefits. But I don't know how I would cope if I got rid of it, because it feels like who I am. So I don't really know like what are the core part like.
Well, one of the common things is empathy, right? Like it will have us be more empathetic towards the differences in other people. That's one of the things that I hear frequently. And like that would still be there, right? Like you'd still be empathetic towards people, but I'd almost feel like I've cheated the system a little bit somehow. I'm like, I can relate to you. Well, I can relate to you from my past experiences, but not from my future experiences anymore. I'd love for people to be able to be born without it, or if interventions can be done for kids growing up so they don't have to navigate those challenges that we have. We're on the way to that.
So I'm just like, we're
on the way there.
More stuff has been going out.
Pretty good for that.
Once driverless cars and everything are universal, then that'll be the. I figure it'll only happen if every car on the road is driverless, because as long as there's
give it less than 50 years, We're on the way
yeah,
there. Yeah, I'd say 25
yeah.
years. Yeah,
One
no, but
day.
that's like a
Yeah,
real thing though, right? Like we would be different people if we were born
yeah,
without nystagmus. My whole
yeah.
personality would be
I
different
know.
if I wasn't born with
Yeah,
it. I would be a different
because
person.
it impacts everything we do. It like the way we interact with people. Like, imagine if you didn't have it, you wouldn't feel that need in every conversation to bring it up. So you wouldn't be thinking like, oh, are they looking at my eyes, or I can't see
Cameron,
their
I would
faces, or
love
I
to be
can't
able to
see.
just interact with people and meet somebody new and not have to worry about my eyes. You know how much I would
Yeah,
love for that? Like, I feel so liberated
yeah.
when it's really sunny outside and everyone's wearing sunglasses.
Sunglasses.
I feel
Yeah,
super liberated because it's like, hey, I'm wearing the sunglasses now and I don't gotta mention my eyes. And it's not that I feel like I have to mention it, but I don't have to be
you didn't have to
insecure about them. I
think
wouldn't have
about
to
it.
think about them.
Yeah,
It's just they're,
yeah,
and I have the lenses where you can't see through them, so I just wouldn't have
yeah,
to. It's just a thought that doesn't
yeah,
have to be there. It sounds so. It's
yeah.
just
I
to
know.
like
So it's like,
that's the thing. I'm not a very
yeah,
envious person, but the one thing that I do envy is
yeah.
like being able to stare other people in the eyes and not
Uh-huh.
feel some type of way about that.
Yeah. Do people comment on it? Do you get people commenting on your eyes moving, or is that
Um,
just more of like an internal thing that you think people are noticing?
Yeah, so my answer to that would be when I was younger in high school, I wouldn't get many comments about it. I'd say maybe like 1 out of 30 people would say something, but that one person sticks with you. And that one person, even though the fraction is so small, that one person really sticks with you, and then it makes
Yeah.
you. That's just kind of like how our psyche works, and for me, that just really
Yeah.
influenced the way that I looked at every conversation. The ratio could have been, it could be 1 in 100 people, and
Hmm.
I still would consider it when I talk to people. And so nowadays, people don't really mention it very much, but that's just kind of like because I'm more secure in mentioning it to people. And when I do
Yeah.
mention it to people, I'll have people like thank me for mentioning it because they were like concerned or they were
I'm
wondering
sure if
and
they should
they
bring it
weren't
up.
able to
Yeah.
focus and they just. So I've had people thank
Mm.
me, be like thank you for mentioning that, and I just feel like that it's an elephant in the room, and if you can alleviate the
Yeah.
elephant, then it's a better thing, and it'll allow people to actually focus on the conversations being had instead of
Hmm.
other things that aren't as relevant. I posted a comedy clip from one of my sets, and somebody commented, "This guy's on Molly. Look at his eyes." So, sometimes people will say things like that. It's like, yeah, dude,
Yeah. It's like,
I am on Molly.
yeah.
I'm
And I'm talking
performing in a
coherently.
comedy club,
Yeah.
and I'm telling jokes that I memorized and practiced 100 times. But
Yeah.
I'm on Molly.
Yeah, but I am. Yeah.
Yeah,
You got it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you
You're
figured it
the
out.
clever one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, that's kind of my experience. Like, it's just really not a lot of people mention it, but the few people that do mention it, it kind of
mm,
sticks with you.
they stand out, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I was in school, not many people would mention it. And then I was like, well, are they noticing it and just not talking about it? And yet some people will notice it, and then I'll bring it up and I'll be like, oh yeah, I noticed your eyes are moving as well. But then I've known people for years, and I'm like, huh? I thought I mentioned that I had this condition. No, and then it'll like come up years later, and I'll be like, oh yeah, like I can't drive. Like, oh yeah, you're just too lazy to get your license. Like, no, I've got a disability where I can't drive. And they're like, what? Uh, what? How have we been friends for this long? And you're just like, how's that not come up?
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's super funny. I'm like, well, then I feel like it's probably not always as visible as we think it is. That's what I learned from that. I was like, well, either I'm disguising it relatively well. Not that I try to disguise it, but yeah,
Do you think
it's
that,
me.
how would you say it's affected your relationships with women?
Um, not in like a super negative way. I think overall it's been like a pretty positive thing. Um, I had like a really supportive girlfriend for a while. I'm single now. Um, but she was like, I never felt like it was a problem in that relationship. So that was really, really nice.
What about when
Yeah, like
meeting
she
women?
was
Do you, because I'll feel
meeting
like this
people.
about not being
Yeah.
able to drive. I'll feel bad about not being able to pick the girl up for the date, you know?
Yeah, that definitely happens with me. I'm like, I try to either make a joke about it but I feel like it's important to bring up too, just for like, just to get it out of the way as well. In a way, I think it's like a good thing because any decent person that we meet in the future isn't going to care about it, or they're not going to like let it be a barrier to getting to know us
Yeah.
and want to spend time with us, right? However, there are people in the world who that would be a barrier for. So the quicker we tell people that we have this condition, the quicker you filter out these negative people in our life. So I think if anything, it's a really good thing. It may limit the short-term or casualness of dating, but
Yeah.
I think it does help solidify stronger and more personal connections
That's a
because
strong
I
way of
really
looking at it.
appreciate, yeah, because like, the people in my life, not even just like, obviously, yeah, my supportive ex-partner, but like just friends and family, like if they talk about it, if they try to help me like read things or offer me lifts, I'm like, you're a really cool person. I want to keep you in my life. And I kind of look about it like that, with dating too. Like if I went on a date with someone and they offered to take me home, I'm like, cool. Well, you're obviously like a good person, like even if it doesn't go anywhere, I still recognize that, yeah, it's a nice thing.
Yeah, there is something to be said
So that's
about
how,
how it can
yeah,
eliminate some of the people that you don't want in your life, some of the people who
yeah,
haven't built up that ability to put some things behind
yeah,
them and not look at them as a deal breaker. Because that not only
exactly.
this goes for all relationships. It doesn't have to do with
Yeah,
significant others, but even just friends, right? Like if there's a friend who,
yeah,
or if there's somebody who you're potentially could be a friend to you, and they're making this out to be something, and they're just showing immaturity, and you can kind of
exactly. I'm
you could
like,
catch
well,
this. You could nip
yeah,
that relationship in the bud, not even have to worry
yeah,
about it.
recognize it quickly and be like, nah, you're gonna say some sassy things to me. I don't want that in my life. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Um, type of comments as well. Yeah, yeah, it's good. I think yeah, it is good. It helps filter out. Oh yeah, you can recognize quicker if people are good or
I always like to
are
see
gonna treat you
when
nicely or not.
I always
Yeah,
like to see when newer relationships, when your friend is willing to start making jokes about the eyes, because people are
yeah,
hesitant to joke about it at first, and I think when I start to joke about them, other people will feel more comfortable joking about them
more
too.
comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
tried
joke
to be a
about your
lot more
eyes?
like. I tried it. I've tried. That's one thing I've been trying to like improve, like work on a lot. It's just like make it a bit more lighthearted because it's
Do you have
not
any go-to
like,
jokes?
I wrote some down. Hang on,
Maybe I can use them.
because
I can use them during my
if I
sets.
well, so when 'cause, yeah, I'd love to try stand-up comedy one day, and then I think that the vision impairment is it's a great topic to go to
Yes.
because there's a lot of funny things there that we do. But what I'm struggling to like write something with is like, well, how do you make it relatable to like, how do you make this niche impairment relatable to the wider audience? And that's what I've been trying to think of, somewhere buried in my phone.
Well,
I can't find
as
it,
you're
but
looking for yours, I'll tell
yeah.
you. I've got so kind of what I'll start with is I'll say I look like I was born during an earthquake and never recovered. I'll usually start
Yeah.
off with something like that, and then I'll say that googly eyes have been culturally appropriating me my whole life. They're offensive. I'm trying to write some material on googly eyes right now.
I've
I
had
don't have
comments, oh,
much.
you look like, a really good security camera.
What's that?
I've had someone comment before and be like, "Oh yeah, it looks like you're a really good security camera. Like, you're keeping track of
Ah,
everything going
yeah,
on." Like,
true.
um, I think like the funnier things too, like we mentioned, not recognizing when people are crying. I think it's not, yeah, like I can't see when you're crying or, so if you're crying, I'm not being rude and ignoring you. I just can't see that you're doing it. If you're talking about, your pet just died, I'm not, I'm not emotionless in response to your poor pet passing away. What I was gonna say, like, I noticed like some funny behaviors that I do. Maybe not like one-off jokes or anything, but like walking down the street to the bus. Obviously, like, I know some of my neighbors, but I can't see them in their car. I don't 100% know that that's them. So if I'm walking down the road and I'm like, oh no, there's a car which I think is my neighbor, but I can't see them in the car. Do I wave? Do I not wave? What do I do? And then I'm just like, you know what? So I've kind of got this like coping mechanism now where I'll just put my headphones on and just like look forward and just look like I'm daydreaming or just like, in my own zone. So at least like, oh yeah, I saw you. Oh, sorry, I was in my own world,
I've done that too.
Yeah.
The
Or looking
headphones are
down at the
definitely
ground as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Because the headphones give you an excuse too. The headphones are like, oh yeah, I was just
Exactly.
listening and I got caught
Yeah.
off
I
was
was
listening.
into this podcast, Dancing Guys podcast is so good. I just couldn't. Yeah, funny things like that.
Now what I do, like in that exact scenario, if I'm running or jogging and I see a car, I just wave at everybody now. I just don't even.
Yeah,
like,
that's
the
other compromise. Just like overcompensate. Just hello to everybody. Yeah. Oh yeah, just be friendly in the world. Another funny one as well. If like I'm sitting on the train and like I'm looking at my phone, right? So like for me, looking at my phone is like this. That just looks like I'm taking a photo of you.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh no, do these people on the train think I'm like some weirdo where I'm just taking a photo of them on the train where I'm just like, actually, I'm just looking at my phone, but they probably think I'm,
Is that your null point?
Funny
right
things
there,
like that.
while you're holding the phone to that angle.
Yeah, I think my null point is like probably like this. I don't know. It's not always super noticeable. I had the surgery to like improve it. When I was like a kid, I used to be like this, so I was looking up. But yeah, now it's slightly off to the left, I think. Yeah, I look more to the right, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the worst, the things like fatigue and like the worse my eyesight is, the more intense my null point will be. So like if I'm really tired, then it'll be more further off to the side. But yeah.
So speaking of stand-up comedy, you were saying that you would be interested in doing it. Are you gonna?
Yeah.
Come on, go do it, man. I want to see.
Yeah, I know. I really want to. I'm just like, I need to like write something first, and then build up the courage to book in somewhere to give it a go. But yeah, it'd be really fun. Do you not feel like? Although it'd probably be a good thing. I was going to say, do you not feel nervous standing up in front of a crowd, and then having people look at you? But then at the same time, you can't see the crowd as easily, right? So it probably maybe helps with the nerves because you can't see people like, I don't know, making hand gestures and things like that.
Oftentimes, if you're in a comedy club, though, which once in a while I will be able to get into one, the lights are set up in a way where the audience is dark anyway, so it doesn't even have to do with your eyes. Like you'll be able to see the first row or two, but the rest of it's kind of like dimmed out, and because the spotlight's on you. And no, the first two times I performed stand-up comedy, just the first two specifically, I was outrageously nervous. I was the most anxious I've been in my whole life, unlike anything I've ever experienced, and not fun. But it had nothing to do with my eyes. It had everything to do with other. Just like
things. More of like a public speaking and
yes.
Are people going to laugh at my jokes? Kind of nervous.
Yeah, I'd hate to bomb in front of 80 people. It just sounds awful. So
we have
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we have the comedy lounge. That's the comedy place we have here in Perth. And one of the shows that they do, it's called the Gong Show. So whenever it's like people get like allocated 3-minute slots, but if the audience isn't laughing, they get to hold up a sign, and if most of the audience holds up their sign, they whack a gong and they get booed off stage.
Oh, nice.
But I'm like, I kind of like that because if you get booed off stage, it's also funny. You don't have to take it so personally because like majority of people are getting booed off stage. So
are they?
It is pretty satisfying.
So it's an open mic, right? Like anybody can go up there and sign up.
They do open mic ones, and then they also do sign up ones as well. Okay. So whoever wins gets like a prize, with like, I don't know, some amount of money.
All right, I got to come out to Australia and try that one out.
Give it a go.
Cool.
You should start it. You should recommend that to your comedy places. They'll
I like that.
Embrace it.
I'll talk to some of my hosts. That's a good idea.
So yeah, I think that would be a pretty fun one. I don't know if I'd want to do it for the first time
No,
because at least
no, you shouldn't do that.
because then I may not get the opportunity to finish my set either. Be like, oh shit, it was that. Oh, sorry,
don't do that. No, it's
it's so
okay.
bad. Yeah,
Don't do that for the first time. For the first time, I'll just go up to a
yeah,
normal open mic, and at a normal open
yeah,
mic, you'll get about 3 to 5 minutes. Every place is a little
yeah,
different, but you get usually a minimum of 3 minutes. And
yeah.
like I was writing jokes for a while before I ended up going up there for the first time, and it takes some time to come up with 3 minutes worth of jokes, but they come eventually. And
Yeah. 3 minutes isn't too huge of like an amount of time to talk for either, so it's definitely achievable to write something
yeah,
for that amount of time.
and you can even
How
tell
do
a
you
story.
know? Yeah, true. It can be like like a bit of an anecdote or like a punchline at the end of a story.
Yeah.
Um,
So like just a common thing with stories
yeah.
would be you have a story and you have a clear punchline at the end, and you tag the story up with little jokes here and there just to keep
Yeah.
the audience retention, just so that
Yeah.
they can be there when you deliver the punchline. You just want them to
Yeah. So they're engaged
be
for the
engaged.
duration. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the
How do you
first.
know
Go
when?
ahead.
I don't. Sorry, I know we're interrupting each other now.
Lag.
I was gonna say, how do you know? Not yeah. How do you know when it's time, like when your set's over? Because like, do you have a watch or do
No,
they tell
they'll
you?
flash a light. The host will
Yeah,
always
because
flash
okay,
a light.
because that was what I was wondering. Was like, am I just going to be talking forever and just not see someone waving? Like, stop it! Like, it's been half an hour. Get off the
Yeah.
stage. Like, because
So
I
yeah,
think about that in
there's a few
presentations
ways.
too.
There's a few ways you can
Yeah.
go about that, right? So the first way would be to figure out how long you're going to get before the set, and practice the set and time it out on your phone, and time it out so that you get 3 minutes.
True.
And so
Yeah,
by the
that's a
time
good
you go up on
point.
stage, you know
Yeah.
you only have 3 minutes worth of material, and you don't even have to worry about the light because your set's going to be done in that time anyway. And the number two thing is, yeah, the light. And the light's usually pretty obvious. There's only been once or twice out of the 30 or so times that I've performed that I didn't see the light. But
Yeah.
fortunately, my set, because I had done that first step, my set had timed out perfectly, and the
It was
light
going to
wasn't
end
relevant.
anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good point. And I reckon that could probably happen to anyone as well, just like not seeing the light.
People miss
Because
the
maybe
light
it's
all
not
the
a fact that
time.
they can't see it. I think it's more just they're in the zone, so they're not paying attention.
It happens
They're
all the time.
focused up here, yeah,
Yeah.
trying to like get through their set.
I had
So
one of my
yeah.
sets went by, and the host came up after I was done, and she was like, Frankie's legally blind, and he could still see the light. Guys, come on! Why are you all going
I love
over
that.
your
Yeah.
time?"
See,
Yeah,
that's I love jokes like that. Yeah, it's good that people feel comfortable enough to make a joke like that because
yeah.
it's not rude, is it? It's just like I don't know. I think it's funny to be honest.
Well,
Like,
it's also you influence their comfort levels by being able to make
yeah,
jokes, because if my material is about my eyes, then like she wouldn't even know I was legally blind if I
yeah,
didn't mention it. So you just talk about the eyes, and then people can joke around a little bit. I had one little bit, which this only happened one time, but a few people in front of me said that he was at a convention and that his buddy got into a fist fight with a blind dude. Or got into a fight with a blind guy, and I was like, perfect, I could use this. So when I went up on my stage, I started doing material about my eyes, and I was like, yeah, I think that guy's friend headbutted me, and
yeah.
I got a really good pop just from that one line there. So it worked out perfect.
That's good. Yeah, you can use that one in the future too. That one's going to get a chuckle, so it's good to keep it in there. Yeah.
Well, it would only really work for
and,
that specific scenario, just because that one guy happened
true,
to
true,
go up
true.
in front of me with his
Yeah.
bit.
Uh,
I wish I could just hire
in
that guy to go up
context.
in front of
Yeah.
me before I go up every time, and then I could always have that there. But yeah,
One thing I would think is likely I'd always bring up is like I've walked into plenty of glass doors before. I don't. Part of it's probably just me being oblivious sometimes. But now, like, because I'm always like conscious, like, am I not going to see that the door's open or shut? Or like sometimes glass is super clean, so I'm like, is that door open or is it shut? I can't tell.
yeah,
So I find myself like walking up to a door and like putting my arm through first
yeah. I've
before
done
I
been there.
before I let that is like my safety mechanism now to make sure I'm not going to walk into a door because I've done it quite a few times. So that oh no, or like walking into trees or poles. Yeah,
It'd be funny for you to intentionally dirty up a door just so you know that it's there.
Yeah.
Let me mark this
Don't
door
clean that
real
door.
quick. Yeah.
Paint it like a fluorescent green color so it's like high vis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
if you're
that's
gonna do
true. That's a
stand
good
up,
idea.
you should hit me up before you go up there. We could do
Yeah,
like a writing
yeah,
session or something, and I could.
yeah. That'd be fun. We should
You know what would
definitely
be
do that.
fun? I want
Yeah,
to do. You know what would be fun? I just got this idea now. I'll
yeah,
do a podcast with you and some of my other buddies that I've met through the podcast, and we'll have like
yeah.
5 or 6 of us, and we'll get into a Zoom call, and we'll write some jokes.
Start making some jokes. That's a great
And then
idea.
I'll go
We should do
perform
that.
them for
Yeah.
like the next few
Yeah.
weeks or so, and then
Okay.
I'll post them on the channel, and then it'll
Yeah.
be
You
like,
should. Yeah. I'd love
here's the
that.
joke
That'd
writing
be
session,
fun.
and here's the jokes. Let's see how they work.
Yeah. Yeah. You should organize that. Let's do it soon. That'd be
We're gonna do
fun.
it.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna
Yeah.
get you. I'm gonna get
Make a
Nate.
note of it. Well, yeah.
We're gonna get Nate. We're gonna
Yeah.
get Chris, Brandon. All right, Mitchell. I'm gonna hit these people up right when I'm done here. That's
Cool.
so
Yeah.
fun.
I'm excited. That'll be fun.
Okay.
It's good too, because it's really funny, isn't it? Just like it, like we're quirky. The things that we do, which are just like awkward, or yeah, not seeing people crying, I think is a funny one. Or
That is a funny one. You
um,
could do a lot with that. 100%. You could do a lot with
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
I have a little bit where I say I hate when people see how crazy my eyes are and they still try to show me a meme on their phone. I can't stand
oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
And then I'll go ahead and say, I think the other day my friend was showing me his phone, and instead of telling him that I couldn't see it, I just started laughing because that's what I do now.
And then they're like, oh, that wasn't a funny picture.
It's a picture of my new girlfriend, dude. That's the punchline, and it works out pretty well.
It is so accurate. It's so relevant too. Honestly, when people hand me their phone, like show me a funny picture, but this meme has a lot of text in it, so I'm like, oh my God, like I'm not going to be able to read that quick enough. And they're sitting there waiting for me to laugh at it, and I'm also like aware of that, so I'm not fully registering what's on the screen. So then I'm just like, oh no. And now I'm focusing on that. So now even if I'm reading it, I'm not finding it as funny as they want me to. And then it's such a thing.
You just gotta do the fake laugh. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah,
people in my
fake
life
laugh.
who know that I can't see, and they'll be like, "Look at this."
Yeah.
It's like, aha, aha. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Um, yeah. I've got like one of my closest friend, he's really supportive, and it's really nice. He'll like just like instinctively just help me out now. I went out the other night and went to a dart. We played darts, and like I can't see. I threw the darts. I could see the dartboard, but I couldn't see the dart throwing it or it landing on the board. So I was just like throwing these sharp objects in the distance, and like one of the games that you can play, it highlights one of the numbers on the dartboard. So what he was doing, he'd walk up ahead of me and like point to like roughly like which wedge on the dartboard I had to throw towards. So it's really nice. Just like I didn't even have to ask
Nice.
to do that stuff as well.
People are great sometimes.
Yeah. Another funny thing too that I find, just like quirky things, is like if I'm going to a restaurant or a bar, is like finding the bathroom. I'm just like, I get really worried that I'm not going to be able to I'm going to walk into like the kitchen by accident, or not be able to find the right bathroom, so that I'll just find myself just not looking for it, and just like, yeah.
But that's one of the things that I don't really think about, right? But it actually will help me be more social. So, because I've been there before, and then now I'll just ask the hostess, like, "Hey, where's the bathroom?" And they'll just
Where's the bathroom? Yeah.
And they'll point somewhere, and I don't really know where they're pointing, but I can see the general.
You can see the direction they're pointing. Yeah. That happens to me too. They'll point a direction. I'll be like, "Hey," and guess I'm walking north.
And then once I get there,
it's
I'll
the
ask
same with-
somebody else if I need to.
Yeah.
You're on a scavenger.
Oh, you're the same
for the
person I
bathroom.
asked the first question. Yeah. It happens with like clothes shopping as well. If I'm like, oh yeah, where's like the men's section? I find myself in the middle of the women's section. I'm like, oh no, like what's happening? Yeah.
When did men start wearing bikinis?
Yeah, it's strange. Did I buy the correct jeans? Am I? Yeah. Funny. Food shopping is like a challenging one, actually. Like I used to be really anxious, like going food shopping, because like things are briefly like labeled in the shops, but it's, once you get into that aisle, it's just small print everywhere, trying to find the ingredients. And I was like, no, I'm determined. I'm not gonna ask for help. I ended up asking for help, and they sent me to the wrong aisle
Nice.
because I spent like an hour looking for breadcrumbs. And I was like, what aisle could they be in? And I was going through so many aisles. And then I asked someone, they were like, oh, it's aisle 7, herbs and spices aisle. I went to aisle 7, and I was there for like 20 minutes going up and down, like reading everything like intricately. And then I was like, there's nothing here. And then it turns out it was the herbs and spices aisle, but it was actually aisle 8. I was like, oh my God.
Pro tip.
Gosh damn it.
Pro tip.
Yeah.
Here's a thing that I've learned for you and for anybody who's listening too.
Yeah.
I only figured this out like a few months ago, but this actually works. So you guys have Walmart over there, I'm sure, right?
No, we don't have Walmart.
No?
But,
Why was I so sure about that? Okay. So anyway, you go somewhere like Walmart, Target, your local grocery store.
Yeah.
And if you don't know where something is, you could just type up where is breadcrumbs in Kroger.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
look for a picture of the item that you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, and then because
what I try to do, yeah.
grocery stores are a pain in the ass too. It's like everything can be
Yeah.
a pain in the ass. Airports aren't extremely exciting either. But then you go to an airport enough times, and this is the same with anything, right? Like we don't really see much, but you go to a certain area so many times that you just know where things
You know
go.
what to expect, or you know how to look for it. Yeah,
Yes.
like you know that your gate that you have to go to is going to be written on a projector or like a TV somewhere. So you have to find that TV, then you take a picture of the gate you have to go to, and then I don't know, you just keep asking people until you find it eventually. Yeah.
Repetitiveness, repeating things over and over again helps.
Yeah.
Like, I've just been to the airport in Atlanta 1,000 times. I've been to the airport in Fort Lauderdale 10,000 times. So it's just, you can figure it out eventually. I'll do better in airports with little vision than people who are clearly sighted. So just
repetition. It's very true. Like even just like going to a restaurant, I'll find myself ordering the same thing sometimes because I'm just like, oh, I can't even be bothered taking a picture of the menu, so I'll just get what I know is already on the menu, or I'll copy what someone else is getting as well. I'll be like, oh, you're getting the double cheeseburger. Yep, sounds good to me. I don't have to think about it. I'm just gonna copy what you're getting as well because I can't be bothered. Like I know I can find an alternative, but sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I don't really care enough to try and look at the entire menu. Like sounds good enough to me. Yeah, so I'll just get the same thing or copy someone else.
All right, so to kind of bring the podcast to a close here, I like to ask these 2 questions, and I think that they generally lead to good responses. So the first question would be, what advice do you have for people who are living with nystagmus? How can they make their lives a little easier?
Just like try to work on being comfortable with having the condition, because it's likely that it's going to be with you for your entire life. Even if even if in the future something is developed to stop it, the life experiences and challenges, they're going to be with you forever. And it's kind of nice. I find it, it separates us, and people don't want to be people want to be normal when they're younger. But in a way, I feel like it's a part of me, which makes me, I don't know, not special, but like different and something unique. And that's really nice because then when you meet people in the world, you get to share this unique thing about you. And often people are pretty interested to learn about it. So I'd say embrace having it and make it a part of yourself. Yeah, it's probably the advice I would give.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solid. And what about, what's some advice that you'd give to a parent of a child who has nystagmus?
Just let them explore the world the way they're going to. Be there and help them. If they need it, talk to schools and do all of those things. But like maybe with more subtlety as well. Like don't prevent them from doing things or be like, oh, it's not worth trying that because, you're not going to be able to see what's going on, or don't go to this place because you won't be able to see how to get there, I really like the way my parents raised me. It was, give everything a go and kind of let me explore the world on my own. Because we can do pretty much everything that everyone else can do. Maybe we have to do it differently, or it takes a bit longer, but we're pretty much able to do everything that everyone else can do.
All right. Well, I appreciate you joining me today, man. This was great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was really therapeutic and liberating for me as well, just to be able to share and talk about my experiences on a public platform as well. Yeah, so thank you for organizing all of this as well. I really appreciate it. And you're doing a great thing in helping lots of people.
Thanks, man. I'm super happy to do it. And yeah, I guess we're going to finish this off over here. For anybody who's listening on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. You listening on Spotify or Apple Music, if you could rate it, I'd appreciate it too. I'd like to see some. It's good. It's good for the podcast when people find a podcast and they scroll down and they see some reviews. People like the reviews. So if you guys want to leave some reviews, I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I'm looking forward to making more podcasts for you guys and making some good content for you. And yeah, all right. Thank you for listening.